good evening, and welcome once again to another edition of our Government at Work program. A program brought to you by the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration and hosted by yours truly, Keith Scarborough. It's a program designed to inform and educate all citizens and residents of Nevis, both at home and abroad, of the many positive developments that are taking place here on the island of Nevis. It's another wonderful Thursday evening here on the island of Nevis, and it's a time when we all look forward to a night filled with information as it pertains to the continued good governance of the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration. We therefore look forward each week to go deep into discussions with the ministers of government, the advisors, the permanent secretaries, the department heads, as well as top officials from the various statutory corporations here on the island of Nevis. We are aware, of course, that there are those who prefer to discuss their own creative narratives. But on this program, we make every effort to have honest discussions that would give our listeners and viewers a true reflection of the developments that are happening here in the land that we all call home. This program, I remind you, is broadcast live on VON Radio every Thursday evening from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Then we broadcast on Nevis Television on Sunday evenings from 8:30 p.m. This and other Government at Work programs, as well as our Bird's Eye View programs, can also be seen on Facebook, YouTube, and the NTV web page. If you have Flow TV, NTV can be found on channel 103. If you have digital TV, NTV can be found on channel 99. So make sure you log on every day of the week for our news package, our informative programs, and of course our entertainment package. By way of information and explanation, we are currently experiencing some technical difficulties with the Flow TV channel. So let me apologize to our Flow TV viewers for that. Flow technicians are currently working to get the situation rectified. However, NTV continues to be aired nightly on digital TV, Facebook, YouTube, and Nevis Newscast webpage. We shall take a short break, and when we return, I shall introduce my guest for this evening's program to you. So stay logged on to the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio 860 AM.
Something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that he's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land. One people, one country.
Welcome back. Folks, I am pleased to have as my guests this evening three of the top officials from the NEVLEC Electricity Company in the person of Mr. Ian Ward, Chief Engineer, Mr. Earl Springett, Generation Manager, and Mr. Al Stapleton Nelson, Transmission and Distribution Manager. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome once again to our Government at Work program.
Thank you again for inviting us. It's a pleasure always to be with you guys.
It's a pleasure having you guys as usual. Yes. And we have quite a bit to discuss this evening.
Yeah.
So
Good evening. Okay.
Good evening. I want to start our discussion this evening focusing for a bit on the operations at the power plant in Prospect itself. I guess this question is for Bobby Earl Springett, who is the generation manager at the power plant. Bobby, could you give us an update on the status of the engines that are in service at the power plant at this time?
Okay. Well, the King, thanks for inviting us again. And I guess when the King sent out a decree, everybody got But you know, quite often I get that question about the power plant, and sometimes I would say, well, I hope that Murphy's Law is not binding, because. But sometimes I would tell the person that asks me, I would say, you know, everything is okay when I left there, but the workers are trying their best to ensure that we have power available every 24/7. But to zoom in on your question though, we have 8 generators that are at the plant that normally we use to meet our system demand. There's G10 and G9, which is generator 9 and generator 10, that we have on standby at the moment. All the others are in service, except G6, generator 6, which recently we done some work on the some upgrade work on the cooling system, and it's offline at the moment due to some issues with the main shaft. There was some excessive clearance on the main shaft for the bearings, so because of that it had generated some heat on that journal. So a machinist was brought in to examine the defects and look at the possibility of machining the shaft on the sides, so that we could return it to service. But the measurement that he got were not, acceptable. So therefore, he recommended that that shaft be replaced. But being on, quite old unit since 1996, I think, it's been very difficult to find a shaft. We used our sources in the UK to try to get a shaft, and they even went as far as India to get one for us. But those that they found was almost in the same condition that we have there. So, but we are still searching and waiting for that one. So in the meantime, that unit is down at the moment because of that. Another unit is G7, but that one has some computer issues, some software issues, so we're working on that as well. But there are 7 gensets at the moment that are working in parallel to provide the power for us at the power plant. Yeah.
Now, a lot of infrastructural development has taken place since you were here last on this program. How has that impacted your generation output, if at all?
There was a slight increase since the last time. I think we moved from 9 point something to about 11 megawatts.
That's not slate. 11.5.
That's not slate at all.
Well, I mean, we are a small island, so that's quite small. But I think we are now moving back down to 8.9 megawatts. I think last month our peak was 8.9 megawatts. And that mainly due to, there's a lot of PV installation now, solar power on the roof, and I think we had some contribution from the wind farm as well. So we are slightly moving down in terms of demand on the system.
Okay.
So those PV installation and some wind generation, that kind of offset the increase in demand with the development of the island. Yeah.
Okay, great. What is our overall generation capacity like at this time?
I think we are at about 15 megawatts.
15 megawatts?
Yeah.
Now, there has been much improvement over the years with the maintenance of those engines, despite what you just mentioned. So much so that when current goes off nowadays, it's either a scheduled outage to do some sort of electrical work, or an accident occurred which caused the steady flow of the electricity to be interrupted. Tell us a little about your maintenance program. How often is it done and who does it?
Well, in terms of maintenance, you have the different divisions. You have the electrical division and you have the mechanical division. So that is basically those what you call preventative maintenance is done by the generation staff for NEVLEC. But there are some other major works like the 24,000 hours, which is almost every 3 years. That is done by engineers from the different engine manufacturers.
Okay.
So like the Wärtsilä unit, that will be done by Wärtsilä engineers.
Okay.
So that is done every 3 years. But the maintenance involves certain intervals. Like you have from 50 hours all the way up to the 24,000 hours. So you might have 50 hours, then 500 hours, which is might be a week and a couple days. And then you have the 1,000 hours where you're changing your fuel filters, changing your oil filters, you're doing what you call a crankshaft deflection. This is a measurement that you use to discover if your main shaft bearings are getting bad. So you do that every 1,000 hours. So if you have a clearance less of 5, and then later when you do the other 1,000 and you're moving up to 8, you have to do an inspection to see why you have that change in the clearances and stuff like that.
Okay.
So but the actual hours that the engine requires maintenance, that is also tracked by an Excel sheet that the clerk in the office would enter every morning. Okay. So for instance, the operators, they would collect all this information during the 24 hours. So at midnight, that would be summarized, and then that would be sent to the office. The lady entered that information on the spreadsheet, and she would be able to predict the next date for let's say the 1,000 hours inspection. So if an inspection is supposed to take place today, and it goes over by 2 hours, that inspection would be flagged. So you would see a red showing up on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, speaking of maintenance, Mr. Stapleton and Nelson, some time ago, NEVLEC undertook a project to have all of the old poles across the island replaced with new ones. Where are we with regards to the completion of that project?
First of all, King, I want to thank you for inviting the NEVLEC crew here, including myself. You could call me Al.
Yeah, Al.
The whole Nevis know me as Al.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. You said some top officials.
Yes.
I just see myself as a humble servant.
Yeah, well.
And we are here to discuss the people's business and to discuss energy. You asked a simple question, but it's a very loaded question. It's not about just removing the old poles. It's a part of NEVLEC's strategic readiness for the energy transition. Our grid is basically an aging infrastructure, and we are currently trying to get the grid ready for the energy transition. Bobby mentioned the load demand has been decreased because of latter PV penetration. And with this PV penetration, it means then our consumers are now producing energy. So we have to get ready for this. So when we go into an area, we are going in, we are not just changing our poles, right? We are getting ready for the energy transition. And with the increase of storms from climate change, we recognize that we have to be resilient. Of course, we love to go underground, but it's a cost attached to that. So when we go into an area, we are upgrading the poles. We are changing out a lot of the class 5 old poles to class 3 poles. We are changing out the brittle insulators from porcelain to polymer, which is a lot more durable. In time spans, what we recognized, we would have had system failure because of a hairline crack in a porcelain insulator. So now we are changing out those insulators to polymer. And then we are also increasing the conductor sizes. Have some small conductors out, so current could pass through them a lot easier. It will increase the current flow, the electrons could pass through them a lot easier. And as the transmission and distribution manager, my KPIs, key point indicators, are reliability, line loss, and power quality. So recognizing my KPIs is reliability, is to keep the power on. And as you attest to, most of the times when the power go off now, is really for maintenance. So when we go into an area, in short, to answer your question, that is going pretty well. We are having some challenges with some of the utilities coming off of the poles. So the aesthetics in the areas are looking bad. Being some exchange of movement, exchange of emails, and we are seeing some improvements.
Okay. Great. You also undertook a street lighting program a few years ago with a view of improving the lighting system across the island. Shed some light on that project for us as well.
I'll pass that. I'll pass that one to Ian. Ian really spearheaded the project as the project manager.
Okay,
I'll pass that one to him.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Scarborough. Okay, the streetlight project was really a federal initiative. It was introduced back in 2022, and it was done as a joint effort. It was St. Kitts, Skelec would have installed their lights, and we would have done likewise. Now, the total amount of lights that was installed was 4,300 lights. I think there was a very, very high failure rate. I think a lot of our customers can attest to that. That we would install lights, and within a few weeks, we were getting calls to replace those lights. So that particular stock of lights is now exhausted. We are in the process. We are having discussions with a company out of Canada to replace damaged lights, and also to add more lights to the system. We've had calls that there are still many dark areas also in town, which is not a good thing for the hub to be poorly lit. So we will have discussions to bring in those new lights. We will also have discussions with the police force. I think they have indicated to us that there are some areas that are very, very dark in town, so hopefully in the next few weeks there will be some action towards replacing damaged lights, and also to increase the amount of lights in areas where there are potentially dark spots. So in that regard, that's where we are right now. So you go back to Al now.
Okay. No, I want to stick with you still, because when that lighting initiative was introduced, the hope was that NEVLEC and the consumers alike should see a reduction in the cost of electricity. Have you seen any reduction in your cost as a result of the new lighting system, or the new bulbs?
Well, the thing is, as Bobby would have indicated, we are a small utility, but we did increase. I mean, I think he made light of it, but we jumped 1 month. We jumped from 9.9. We had never ever in the history of NEVLEC ever gone above 10 megawatts. The following month we jumped from 9.9 to 10.4 megawatts. And then there was a slight increase for the next few months until we got up to 11.47. It's unprecedented. So that put a strain on our lines, put a strain on the generation plant. Thank goodness we were able to come through that period of time. We're again expecting a hot summer. All indications are that there will be another hot summer. So we don't know if the solar would help, or whether or not we have to again rely on the generation plant to meet the demand of the country. There's also a couple of projects. The people have indicated to us that they want to increase the loads on various projects, so that will also see an increase. So we did see a slight dip, but with all that's going on right now, it wasn't fully manifested, because we would have gained on one side, and bear in mind that we actually increased the amount of lights. We went from 3,000 lights to 4,300 lights, so it's difficult to see where that saving was. Okay.
Now, you mentioned earlier that there are plans to get additional bulbs in place in dark areas. So any time frame? You have any specific time frame? Like you hope to get it done by the end of May, end of June, end of July?
Well, we've spoken to the manufacturer, and so we are hopeful. They're telling us that it may take up to 2 months to manufacture and then to ship to Nevis. So we're in April now, so I would say tentatively June, July. We'll start to install those lights. We're just asking the public to be very patient with us. I know some persons, they've called on a number of occasions, but we can't replace the lights if we don't have no lights. So we're asking to be patient with us. We will get around to doing it. So we have a list of persons. That list is done through transmission and distribution through our dispatch unit. So we do have a list, and as soon as those lights come in, first and foremost we will help the police force, and then we will return to the public and start to install lights.
Okay, yeah. I asked the question because like you have been getting a lot of complaints with regards to that as well.
Yeah, we understand that.
Now, we are well aware that the operation cost to NEVLEC and other generation plants across the Caribbean continues to increase, due mainly to circumstances beyond your control, of course. How is NEVLEC coping with increase in its daily operation, especially as it relates to the purchasing of fuel?
Well, actually, fuel prices have come down slightly. But we are, in NEVLEC, we're trying to move away from fossil fuels. We are right now in negotiation, we're speaking to a couple of companies to do a joint venture with solar. We see that as a good option. We obviously have sun, and to add to the sun, we want to add batteries. And what the batteries will do is to smooth the curve. So when sun dips and so forth, the battery will maintain the level of capacity. So we are looking at that. That particular project may be first quarter of 2026. I think they've done a lot of studies already. I think the next step for them will be a feasibility study. So when that is done, as that becomes, let's say as the project comes closer and we can come out to the public and tell them, well, yes, there is a project, it will be in this area and we are hoping to commence at this time and completion date will be at this time. But I don't want to mention anything right now until we're closer to signing contracts.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that the price of fuel has gone down. How does that affect your operation cost now, and how do you see this development affecting the ultimate cost to the consumers?
Well, obviously, the volatility of fuel, we have seen it escalate over the years. And obviously, unfortunately, I should say, that goes back to the consumer. I can empathize because I'm also a customer. There are some people who believe that NEVLEC workers, for example, would get concessions. Well, we pay our bills just like you pay your bills, exactly the same. Whatever we consume, we pay for.
Okay.
And so, so we feel that effect. But as you rightly said, you know, it is very, very volatile. We may see, you know, as a repercussion of what's going on in the US, we may see a spike coming from somewhere in retaliation. And obviously, we've been a small country. We'll feel the brunt of it. You know, we can't produce nothing. We're just reliant on you supplying us with the fuel. So that is why we feel the need. We have the small wind farm, and we feel the need to add to the renewables, which we think will complement the geothermal when it arrives. It will give us a stronger option rather than going back to fossil fuels to maintain that renewable strategy. So geothermal, along with solar, along with wind, and you know, I think the commitment made by the government, NIA as well as federal government, is that we are 100% renewable by 2030. I think that commitment was made at the Paris Agreement. I think it was COP27 or COP28, whatever it was. So we are committed to going fully renewable.
Okay, until we get there, how do you suggest, what suggestion do you have for the consumer as to how to reduce their cost in terms of electricity? Well,
I think most customers have, you know, I think a lot of customers have gone with LED lighting, for example. But at the same time, a number of customers who didn't have ACs a couple of years ago now have ACs. So they have really increased their loads. We did speak about going fully 3-wire system, and we're still working on that. But there are a number of customers that still have transformers in their homes, and that is also an increase, you know, in the demand. It may seem like it's in, but you're in your home, the transformer is getting hot in the house, so it's obviously consuming electricity. Sometimes they cause problems too. So all of this, you know, all that we can say to customers, you know, just be vigilant. You know, don't leave on lights.
Standard procedures.
Yes.
Unplug unused devices.
Yeah.
TV might be up, but it's still consuming because it's plugged in. That little red light is on.
Yeah.
Phone chargers, microwaves. Plug them out.
Yeah. They're what we call in the industry phantom loads. You tell yourself nothing's going on, but they are pulling current.
Quite a lot is going on.
So when we do like investigations, we pick up those things.
Okay.
Some of these smart TVs pull a lot of current, for example, and people just leave them on.
As Ian also mentioned, it might be best for you to just invest in LED lighting. Because it'll reduce your electricity, that consumption by at least 75% for lighting. Close the refrigerator doors. Heating and cooling are the two major players in the game. So if you could, we want to be fancy sometimes. Everybody want to have an AC, even when the place is cool.
Yeah, we get used to it.
True.
Well,
but in addition to that, to the king, we got to make our kids active because you will have a youngster inside the house. He looking at this tablet, television is playing, the fan is on the AC. So I think just as in addition to what we are saying, we need to look at our kids how they doing this stuff.
Yeah. Well,
they go out in the yard, play some cricket, play some football or something instead of inside there with all the appliances.
Those days done with.
But in a part of the energy transition is decentralization. You want to have distributed power generation. But a key part of it is digitalizing the grid, right? And we have had a number of talks with different vendors to see how we could implement AMI, advanced metering infrastructure. So if we could implement the AMI, then consumers and demand side management, consumers now will be able to see their consumption in real time and see what's going on when they use certain devices, rather than coming to us for us to roll a truck to go out and do a meter test or a load test. So we are trying to make some advancement in those areas.
Smart move. Before I move to the next topic, I want to ask you about the status of the 110 current going directly into the houses here in Nevis, especially since almost all of the appliances in the homes are operated by 110 current. Many persons have been expressing the desire to be able to get that connection directly from the pole closest to the residents, to their residents. I remember putting that question to you the last time you were here, Al. Is NEVLEC any closer to providing that service to those who may be interested? I know you went through the length of it last time. So what's
I'll try my best again. Another heavily loaded question. And again, I'm sticking to my point of energy transition. So our hope is that we could have all our consumers, because we are of close proximity to the US. I know we have a few UK or British consumers, but our hope is for us to be using the American 240 120. So in doing so, there are some challenges. Not all communities are readily available. So in the communities that are readily available, we go in and we do the switch very easily. We are very accommodating. We don't even charge you for it. However, if you request it and we have to come in and do the work, we'll charge you for it. So when I talk about community readiness, for example, this is a community. I'm ready for it. Ian is ready for it. Bobby is not ready for it. Bobby is in the middle. So how do we then give Bobby the 110? If there's a instance where the American system is available, depends on Bobby's proximity to the transformer. He may have it depending on the loading of the transformer. If we're going to be giving him 110, there are some considerations we have to take in. There are certain things we have to take into consideration. Voltage drop, and we are trying to again, give our customers the best power quality available. So we don't want Bobby to be somebody down the line to experience voltage drop. You're putting in an AC, chances are you're not getting 120. If the AC requires 120, you're getting 90 something, and then the AC fails. So it's heavily loaded. There are some instances where NEVLEC would have accept and take up some of the costs to assist in giving some consumers. So all in all, our consumers, we are trying to our best to give you the 110 to 20, but the 110 it's very tricky for us, and it's not readily available in all communities. Again, yes, we could provide it, but the resources, we have to put in additional transformers, additional HV lines, and then it might drive up the cost of electricity. So there are certain challenges when it comes to around the 110.
Okay, all right. Now, I want to turn your attention now to the elephant in the room, geothermal energy, because everyone agrees that if and when this becomes a reality, it could be a game changer for the island and people of Nevis for good. I want to start first with the fact that a few weeks ago, you met with top officials from the Green Climate Fund and toured some of the areas where it is expected that some of the drilling will be done. Enlighten us here a little on that tour, the purpose of the tour, and some of the discussions that took place with those officials.
Well, as you rightly said, GCF, Green Climate Fund, have indicated an interest of the project, but normally they would provide funding through banks and other institutions. They don't really come direct to NEVLEC.
Yeah.
I think their concern was, well, same as our concern, that the project is taking too long to get off the ground and so forth. What they will do with that information, only they will know, and I guess persons way above my head, and then it will filter down. But I think when they came, we took them up to the Hamilton site, and we explained what was going on and so forth. They did express interest. At what level that is, I really don't know. But like many other institutions that come to Nevis, they see the potential, but obviously, at times, cost is prohibitive because, we're small, and even if we're discussing, say, a 30 megawatt or 50 megawatt plant, in terms of larger contractors, it's still a small project, because when you look around the world, there's projects with 100 and something megawatts and so forth. But we've had further discussions with CDB, and it does seem as though, let me say, it seems as though that things will be happening. We've just sent out the bid document. There are a lot of questions asked of us, and so we were able to answer those questions. And so we're hoping that there will be submissions done by May the 8th. There might be a call for extension, because we sent back the responses kind of late. But saying that, there have been a couple of companies who have indicated their desire to come and see the site, and that's normally a good indication. When a team or a company wants to come and see location and so forth, and what you're planning to do and so forth, normally they will show interest, and normally they will bid. So a couple of companies have indicated, so I think they're looking at either the latter part of April or the early part of May. Now that there's a conference in St. Kitts and Nevis, because we're going to do something as well in Nevis. And so some of the companies have indicated that they're going to come to the conference, and while they're here, they'll visit the site, and we'll accommodate anybody who wants to come visit the site.
Okay, great. Now, financing for the drilling stage for the geothermal energy has been secured.
Yes.
How important is that in the pursuit of the development of geothermal here on Nevis?
Well, companies want to know they didn't get paid. So CDB would have provided let us say, a de-risking mechanism with the 16 million, but 16 million cannot drill 5 holes. We're looking at roughly $5.5 million per well. So whatever it is, 5.5 times 5 to complete the drilling campaign. So having secured that money, obviously contractors now are saying, well, number one, the project has been de-risked, because if they drill and nothing is there, nothing is paid out. That is what CDB provided for us. And then other companies, SDF have put forward some monies as well. But they've said to us that it is expressly for the drilling campaign.
Yes.
So the money is there. All contractors, there's no fear factor. A lot of them were asking how they were paid and so forth. And so with the money now available, made available, contractors come knowing that they can bid and that they can begin mobilization and that they can start the drilling campaign.
Okay, great. Now, the development of geothermal has been pursued here in Nevis as early as 2004. First by former Premier Amri and the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration, then by the Joseph Parry and his NRP-led administration from 2006 all the way through to 2013. Then the CCM administration came back into power in 2013 and continued in the pursuit of that dream. We are now hearing that the federal government has joined in that effort. Tell us a little about the impact of the federal assistance that we are now receiving.
Well, obviously, in the context of, well, let's say, in the world itself, any company doing any major projects in Nevis would expect documents to be signed by the federal government, the Prime Minister, and so forth. What we have seen is that companies, institutions, they're showing that much more interest. I think in the past we were dealing with it as a Nevis project. Now it is a federal project. Other companies are getting interested. Why? Because we're still small. Our base load is say 10 megawatts. The base load of Senkis is 20 something megawatts, 25 megawatts, whatever it is. And so doing the project of that size, it's tiny, but in the context of Senkis Nevis, it's a fairly sizable project. And we are looking not only at 30 megawatts, we're looking to quickly step it up to 50 megawatts. So the project itself, if we're able to step up at various stages of the drilling campaign, as you rightly said, it will be a game changer, and not only for Senkis and Nevis, but I think one of the things that GCF, for example, was discussing to us is a regional project. So they're looking to interconnect with, and I guess I could mention some of the names. They have spoken to people in St. Martin, in Anguilla, in the most recent third council meeting. Montserrat came and said, well, what about us?
Okay.
And also Antigua and Barbuda said, well, we're closer than St. Martin. So I think there's interest regionally now. So obviously, if we're able to extract that amount of steam from the geothermal plant, it's going to help other islands that they also can wean themselves off of fossil fuel, which is important.
Of course.
It's important. So if we're able to do that, right, then we will see across the board cheaper less expensive, let's say cheaper, less expensive electricity, and with that, there are a number of companies that would be interested in coming to the Federation, coming to Nevis to do business, right? Because they'll be able to get less expensive electricity.
Okay. So, speaking of that less expensive, let me ask you a question, Al. How beneficial will the geothermal source be to that same 110 count we were talking about? Will that make it more easier for NEVLEC to be putting that 110 in the various homes?
Not really, because geothermal is really generation, and then there's the transmission and distribution side. And again, because of a part of the energy transition, what we are trying to do there's a two-part for the whole SKN Nice project. So there's a generation part, and there's also a transmission and distribution part of it. In the transmission and distribution part, there's also an energy efficiency part. So we want to go into, once we could secure the funding, we could go into the homes and help the consumers to do all the changes they want, because generally we want to have a one grid between St. Kitts and Nevis. So yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to what Ali's saying, I think when we were here last time, we did mention the IUS project, which we started at the hospital, where we replaced all LED lights in the hospital. We replaced air conditioning units with inverter type air conditioning units. We are presently trying to install a solar at the. I think there's 2 solars at the hospital. I think. Yeah. So I think
there's going to be one for sure at the
senior home.
I don't want to say informal.
Yeah, no,
flamboyant.
But that's a different project. The project that we are doing would be a project for Alexander Hospital itself.
Okay.
And what we're looking at is like a carport, and so building up cars can park underneath, and then mounting the solar panels. We thought that project would have started already. We have reached out to the members at CCRE, trying to find out when we can start to put out RFPs for contractors to bid for that particular project. That project, what we're hoping to do with that same project is, as Al indicated, is to go into the homes. So we are looking at, first and foremost, to do with government buildings. Change out lights, ACs, and in some, like admin building, for example, might be a prime spot to put a nice little PV solar system right there. But then after that is all done, we are looking now to go into areas where customers have indicated yes, they would like it, but it's too expensive. NEVLEC would be willing to undertake the costs of installing the wire and the pipe work and so forth, and then give them the 3-wire system. That will come into effect, I guess, once we've completed all the government infrastructure. Then we will start to go back into the community. Persons that have 3-wire will be looking at rooftop solar for those particular customers, and those who want to transition from let's say a 0 to 30 volt system, a British system, to an American, and we will go in and do the necessary work, and then give them the 3, take out the transformers, throw them away, and give them the American 3-wire system. So it's not off the table. It's just that it's taking a little bit longer than we thought.
Okay.
We just start a little bit too as well, King. So when we do go into these areas, we are putting in the 3 lines, so to make it readily available for when you want to come on stream.
Okay. Good. Sounds good. Now, you mentioned a little earlier about the bidding process and the deadline and stuff like that. Are you in a position to say how many bids were sent in and by whom?
Well, I can't tell you that information. No. But suffice to say that included on the list were I believe, the top 10 contractors in the world.
Wow.
They were on that list. So, and then there were a few additions, companies that had done work in South America. They indicated that they'd like to join the process. There were probably another 4 or 5, and so even with that, we didn't want to exclude anybody. And so even that would have, back then would have caused an extension, in the bidding process.
Yes. Interest is being generated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, to get back to the wells, where exactly will the wells be dug, and how many wells will be dug?
Well, on the site itself, we have 2 exploratory wells, N3 and N4. So I would say just a little bit west of N4, we will drill 3 production wells, which is 5, 6, and 7. So that is where they will be the drill. So that will be going back up towards Bananas.
Yes.
Right. and then the injection wells. Reinjection wells, they'll be on that. How can I tell you? When you're coming up Hamilton,
yes,
you got them two little hind legs.
Yes.
Right. So on the first hind leg, just off the road there, is the area where we plan to do the reinjection wells.
Okay.
Is that the opposite side of the chimney?
Yeah. And there's
close to Carino.
Well, the production wells are going to be behind Carino. The reinjection wells would be, I would say, to the west of Carino. So it's coming back down the hill.
Oh, okay.
Back towards Hamilton project. I don't like calling them projects. Housing developments.
Housing developments. Okay. Folks, you're listening to Government at Work. My guest this evening is the top official from NEVLEC.
Humble servants.
Humble servants. Al Stapleton Nelson, Ian Ward, and Bobby Earl Springett. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we shall continue with our discussions here on Government at Work.
Is right, St. James's, put together and build your land. Right, St. George's and St. Paul's, together with St. John's. This land is enough for all to share. No reason to leave and go nowhere. Foreigners can come here from America and England. There is something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that he's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land. One people, one country.
Welcome back. Gentlemen, let's talk a little bit. And before I go any further, let me tell you, feel free to jump in on any topic. It doesn't have to be Ian alone. Feel free to jump in on any of the topic that we're discussing. Let's talk a little about the next phase after the drilling is done. I'm not going a little further than you want me to go, but let's speak hypothetically.
Well,
now, the geothermal energy plant itself, the Premier during his press conference mentioned that another 35 billion is being sought to build a geothermal plant, as well as to deal with the distribution lines that is to be connected to NEVLEC power plant, among other things, of course. My first question to you is, do you know where the plant is to be located? The actual plant that is to be built?
Same location.
Same location?
Hamilton, yeah. Same location. But the plant would have to be built, obviously, but I think from the NEVLEC perspective, our mindset is on the transmission lines, because we have to build a line from Hamilton back to Prospect, first and foremost. And then we have to build a line from Prospect.
Don't forget the substation.
Yeah. Well, you want the substation, you get switchyard as well, but and then we have to go down to Charlestown. And because that's an important feature as well, because that's where the interconnection point will be, interconnecting with St. Kitts.
Oh, okay.
So we have one at Charlestown.
Where exactly in Charlestown we anticipate?
Well, we were looking at placing it basically where the transformers are located right now. We're not sure if that will be an option. That will depend, I guess, on what the government wants to do with the land and so forth. But that is where we're looking at for the substation. And then the Cades Bay one might come a little earlier, quicker than the Charlestown one, because we have been told that CDB and other partners have indicated their interest in sending the link from Cades Bay over to Frigate Bay and then on to Nidsmos. So I think they're looking at what they can give in terms of financing. So if that is readily available, then we will trench and deal with that. But obviously that will be just a part of what the overall project will be doing. So as Al had indicated, the intention would be that essentially we won't be two different grids, but we'll be one grid. So that is helpful even as we transition towards geothermal, because we can help each other. If Skellig has a shortfall, then we can send something down to them, and if we have a shortfall. So that interlink is very, very important.
How soon after the drilling process is completed do you anticipate work will start on the plant itself, once funding has been secured, of course?
Well, it normally takes 18 months.
For the plant itself?
Yeah. But what we're trying to do is that once we get the results of the wells, so if we get, we go down 1.5 kilometers and we're getting 290 degrees Celsius and so forth, and based on the results we can pull 10 megawatts from each well, then we would go straight in to the securing of a contractor. And we've already had, I would say, I wouldn't mention them by name, but I say probably the top company in terms of building plants in the world have already shown keen interest. The problem with that, I would say, is that normally with CDB they want competitive bidding.
Yes.
Right? We would, if we have the best of the best of the best, we would prefer to go sole sourcing. We say, you can do it all, it's your project. But obviously we can't make that decision. That will happen way above our heads.
Bobby, let me ask you that, and I keep saying Bobby because that is what I'm accustomed to now. Hypothetically speaking, if we secure the amount of geothermal that we are hoping to secure down the road, where does that leave the engines themselves that we are currently using?
Well, my understanding from that is that the effort would be to go fully geothermal. But still, it is dependent on the type of turbine that they're using at the plant. What I mean about that is that the diesel generators, they could follow the demand. So if you start in the morning at, let's say, 6 megawatts, and then by 10 o'clock, you might have about 9 megawatts. So the generators are following the demand on the system. But the turbine, the steam turbine now from the geothermal plant, it might not be able to load follow. So what you might have to do is to have maybe one diesel generator operating in parallel with that system to absorb that change. So as the changes come along, the diesel generator will be trying to maintain the cycle, the 60 cycle that we have. And in addition to that, now the load from the system now would be added to the turbine at the geothermal plant. So basically, it's not absorbing the rapid changes, because the way it is built, from my understanding, it has to maybe operate in parallel with one of the diesel generators at the plant. Maybe until something could be done in terms of having it fully operational, so that it could load follow. As the demand increase, it would increase at a certain rate with the system.
Okay, so there's still be the need for the engines to be operating.
In the initial stages, until
till we get the 100 megawatts, when we could cover the whole world. Just teasing. Now, gentlemen, NEVLEC will be playing a leading role in the planting of the poles, the running of the lines from the geothermal plant to the power plant itself in Prospect. Give us an idea of the kind of work that will have to be done before that connection could be completed and the geothermal energy itself could start to flow to the consumer. So give us an idea of the type of work that will have to be done to get that become a reality from the plant to the power.
So we have at the moment we are trying to build capacity. We're building capacity in trying to build capacity in high voltage underground distribution. A pathway has already been identified, and to build resilience we want to go underground. So we'll need excavation, Procurement is very critical. So procurement in getting all of the apparatus and cables and the likes thereof to undertake such a project. We have already had some discussions with some contractors to see, what are the timelines to get these devices and apparatus. So at the moment is to build skill set and procurement.
Okay, great. Ian, maybe this question is for you, really. Now that the federal government is fully on board with the development of geothermal here in Nevis, what has the discussions between NEVLEC and SCELEC been like of late?
Well, there's a number of projects going on at the same time. When it comes to the geothermal itself, NEVLEC is the executing agent.
Right.
So we'll be doing the project that has been established by the federal government. SCELEC will assist. SCELEC also has a project management unit, and as Al said, there will be a measure of capacity building. So right now they're working at 11 kV. That's what our voltage is. But our intention is to go up to 69 kV.
69 kV.
Right? That's for distribution purposes.
Transmission.
Yeah. So part of the training would include SCELEC in that training mechanism. So we had a meeting recently with a company out of the EU, and we have identified areas that we would want training in, and they're keen to provide that training. So that will be done between NEVLEC and SCELEC. But in terms of the geothermal itself, it would be executed by NEVLEC.
By NEVLEC?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me ask you, how often do you meet now that it's more of a federal kind of...
Well, we meet with SCELEC every 2 weeks. Yeah, so...
Bi-weekly?
Yeah, every 2 weeks. So what happens there is that basically it's updates. What's going on in Nevis, what's going on in St. Kitts. I think in the past they were hearing rumors of what's going on in Nevis, and we were hearing rumors of what's going on in St. Kitts. So to properly define what's going on both islands, we have these meetings and we discuss what's going on and so forth.
Okay. Now, some time ago, the discussions were centered around the power sharing agreement. Has that been decided as yet, or discussions are still ongoing?
Well, the plan is, I think, is for them to put together a special purpose vehicle, SPV. So until that happens, we don't know how, because obviously that will be discussions between the NIA and the federal government, and they will form the backbone of that SPV, and NEVLEC will remain a utility, and likewise SCELEC will remain a utility. So we will be buying power from the SPV. So until that happens, it's well, I guess that discussion will happen, and whatever happens after that, I guess somebody at a different level from us will come out and speak about that.
Okay. Now, I want to talk a little about the employment as it relates to the overall development of the geothermal energy, from the drilling stage to the building of the plant and eventually the full operation of geothermal plant itself. Give us an idea of the kind of numbers that we are looking at in terms of the possible employment levels.
Well,
from point one to
well, from the drilling campaign, the plan is for them to do a 24-hour campaign, so they'll have 2 12-hour shifts.
2 12-hour shifts.
Right. So they would have, I think they're looking at between 12 and 15 staff per shift.
Okay.
From the Nevis end, when I say the St. Kitts Nevis end, the project manager would be based in Nevis. It would be one of us. Attached to him, we will have a couple of experts in the drilling program, so they'll be used to basically give daily updates as to how far the drilling has been and so forth. What we've also indicated is that where they can use local contractors, we use local contractors. So that's very important to us. In terms of the plant itself, what we're looking at, what we have discussed, is that the operators presently at Prospect will be trained with the intent of running the geothermal plant. So there will be a very strong local content. It's not just people coming in and doing all the work and leaving with all the money. We're hoping to spread the wealth even amongst the local people.
Okay, great. Now, currently we don't have many persons who are familiar with the development of geothermal energy here in Nevis. So many persons will have to be trained if they wish to become part of the staff for phase 1, the drilling, phase 2, the building of the plant, and of course phase 3, the start of the full operations. Talk to us a little about the type of training that will be given to persons who wish to be employed for any of those phases. Give us an idea of the type of training that will need to be done.
Well, I think we have the resource already on island. Bobby, the staff at the power station, they're running the plant, and I think it's fair to say that it's probably more difficult to run a thermal plant than run a geothermal plant. So they will need additional training, of course, but I think they have the core training already in place at the power station. The transmission lines, as Al indicated, that will be done by us.
Okay.
NEVLEC, I guess Skelec, and I guess we would need additional staff. So, persons with excavators and so forth will be needed. Obviously, we'll need the cooperation of the general public, because I would want to believe that there are some areas where we don't have the full amount of space. So we have had discussions previously with physical planning in establishing 3 feet for whether it's water or for electricity. So that might be something we have to ensure is in place before we start doing excavation. We don't want to be stopping and starting because a homeowner says that we're crossing over the boundary and so forth. So it's going to be, I would say, all hands on deck. Not only us who are doing the work, but we're expecting homeowners, landowners to be accommodating, because as you rightly said, it's a game changer. Everybody in Nevis will be impacted by geothermal one way or the other. So we're expecting everybody to to do their part and put country above self.
Okay. Listening to you, it sounds like you're saying that the actual NEVLEC staff that is there now will be the one most involved in the actual running of the plant itself.
It's a NEVLEC undertaking.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm happy to hear.
So just to state here and now that we will not be discarding our staff for the project. Staff will be selected. I guess Bobby will have to tell us which ones he can use, but they'll be selected, and then they will be trained to take over the geothermal plant.
Okay.
Right. There will be people obviously working along with us.
Yes.
In the first X amount of years, until we feel fully comfortable that we can do it. Do it on our own. So it may be staff from Skelec, it may be staff from NEVLEC, but what we're looking at right now is having a local content in dealing with the plant itself and doing all the transmission work and so forth.
Sounds good. Let me ask you this. What will be the actual responsibility of the developers of geothermal energy? What will they be responsible for, actually?
Drilling.
Just the drilling?
Drilling and building the plant.
That's it.
So we'll be working along with them. The intention is for us to fully own the geothermal resource, not have others build it, come in and then dictate to us what money we'll be given. I think we've seen that too many times in the Caribbean, so we want it to be a federal resource and eventually to be a Caribbean resource, right? So the intention really is to they'll do the drilling. We're going to pay them like they're a contractor. And likewise, the building of the plant. Obviously, there'll be a transition period. So the guys will be trained and so forth. And then, you know, when they're fully comfortable, I mean, with technology today, a person could be halfway around the world and make moves that impacts your site. So you know, it doesn't. They don't have to be here.
SCADA system.
Yeah, exactly. You got SCADA system and so forth. So
great.
that's the intention.
Okay, sounds good. Now, in speaking with the general manager of NEVLEC a couple of years ago, he outlined a number of other products that could be developed as a result of geothermal energy. Speak to us a little about those additional products and the possibility of them becoming a reality sometime down the road.
Me again?
Yeah, well, anyone, all three. I'm speaking to all three now.
You're more familiar with
I'm speaking to all three now.
Okay,
you know?
so
he mentioned a number of other products that could come.
So I think the term he would have used would have been power to X. And with power to X, what we'd want to do is to use the geothermal resource to produce hydrogen. Right? From hydrogen, you can produce fertilizer.
Right.
So fertilizer, if let us say we bring in agriculture into that particular medium, then we can start talking about food security.
Yes.
You understand? And so that was one of the options we were looking at with hydrogen. Also, we see and methane. That you can go from hydrogen to methane. A lot of the tourist ships right now are talking about using methane. So rather than using fossil fuels, they're using methane to drive their ships. So one of the things that was discussed at that time, and I think it's on the table. St. Kitts is doing the tourism, so they have all the ships. But when you want refueling, you come to Nevis. Right. So that is one of the things I think he may have mentioned at that time. But there are a number of things. There's lithium, for example, which is a very important commodity around the world for batteries and so forth. So I don't want to preempt, but there's a lot of different things that can be done, right? So I guess when we're closer to that, whether it's the government, they may dictate we want to go in this direction, and then that's what we'll go in.
Speaking to the GM at the time, he seems to think that that's where the real money is for Nevis in those additional. Do you share that? I do, because as I said, those fertilizer, for example, I think we could probably produce enough fertilizer to supply a good portion of the OECS. Wow! And so that alone is a financial windfall. So, and to try to explain what we're going to do 5 and 10 years from now, I think we need to just wait and see. Yes. And I know we jump in the gun, let the play come to us. Let the ball come on to the bat. Now, the island of Dominica is also seeking to develop geothermal energy. As a matter of fact, I understand that they are much further on than us. How do you see this impacting our efforts to sell geothermal energy further afield when the time comes? Well, I guess at some point, what we'll be looking at, and I think what the Caribbean is looking at, is to have a grid, a Caribbean grid. So there have been discussions with Trinidad as we speak. So I guess at some point we would interconnect with the islands close to us, but the intention would be to move or go more towards Dominica. We have to also remember that Montserrat has a decent resource. And so that might be, and I know many years ago, what the intention was, probably back in the 90s. And what the intention was to create a grid between St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, and Montserrat. But the resource will be coming out of Nevis and Montserrat. So I guess we will view it as too small an island to implement that kind of project. But right now, it's a reality. And if you want to reduce your energy costs, then you have to use geothermal. That's the only thing that we can use right now to reduce energy costs and to invite businesses to come to your island and do business. Okay, great. Now, the impact that the development of geothermal could have or will have on not only NEVLEC's daily operations, but the local consumers and businesses alike here in Nevis could be huge.
Yeah.
How huge?
It's a game changer. Because we are talking about energy independence and energy security. Right now, everything is being powered by energy. It's even the same water that flows through your pipes, it takes energy. If a feeder goes down, I'm getting a call from water. So our lives depend on it. Ian mentioned about the derivatives. You're talking about selling power to neighboring islands. So it's really a game changer. AI is now running the world. It takes a huge amount of energy to power these plants. So we could even attract some of these big companies to the island. So it's really a game changer.
But I think
and most importantly, it could also drive the cost of electricity down.
I think that's I think that's the point you're making. With geothermal, you lose the anxiety of fuel prices escalating overnight. When we fix the price for geothermal, that price will be maintained, and it'll be maintained by who? By us.
And to add to that too, as well, Ian, it's not variable like sun or wind.
Constant.
It's constant power.
Let me ask you this, gentlemen. Do you have any fear at all about the actual drilling for geothermal? Because some persons have expressed some concerns about interfering with the vein that leads to the Nevis Peak and stuff like that.
It's a geological question.
I know. I mean, is there any fear at all? I remember when they were doing the drilling some time back, there was a big boom. Is there any fear?
I think it was coincidental. The magma actually is 10 kilometers down. So unless we're going 10 kilometers, I'd be fearful if we're going down 10 kilometers. But there are countries like Iceland, for example, who drill into the magma to get the geothermal resource. Yes.
That's what they're doing.
You understand? So for us, we have no fear. Things will happen. And obviously when things happen, they'll point fingers at the geothermal. Yes. But we have trimmers every single day. And there's no drilling going on.
You have a point. Let me get to you first before I ask this question. The running of the lines under the bottom of the ocean to get across to St. Kitts or perhaps the other neighboring islands, what does that entail? Who will be doing that? Will that be NEVLEC or some outside company coming in to do it? Tell us a little about how that part goes.
For a project of that undertaking, we don't have the skill set, so we'll have to contract it out. But definitely we'll have to do some environmental impact before we could do any of the work. And again, we'll have to outsource it for us to do such an undertaking. We don't have the equipment. We've never done anything of that nature. Yes, we could learn. We'll probably have to build capacity. But even in some of the larger countries, that type of work is contracted out. But you start with an EIA, and some level of grid modeling will have to take place as well.
Give me your assessment of the whole idea of geothermal becoming a reality here in Nevis. Does the impact of that really hit you yet?
Well,
because I don't think people understand what something like this could do to the island of Nevis. You know,
it's going to take time for the public. I think they've been wearied over the years
of the talk
of it. So I think I don't think we can convince them. When the contract is signed, would not convince them. When the rigs come and the production starts, then I think they would say, boy, something is really happening. So I don't think at this point there's nothing that we can say to convince. even if I say that yes, it's coming, I think most people have been desensitized when it comes to hearing about geothermal. So it will only, I think people will only be encouraged when they actually see the drilling going on, and contractors moving back and forth, and again, local contractors are doing work as well. And I think at that point people will say, something is really happening.
Sure. Talking about that, would you be having any awareness programs and things?
Yeah. Well,
town halls and maybe to give.
Yes. So, well, if you notice, when we began the project with town halls.
Yes.
We met with the persons in close proximity to the geothermal plant, because some had shown, had concerns, and there was a blowout on number 3 back in 2007-8. Even though it didn't. Well, for us, it was good because we know that the resource is there. But I guess for the public, we don't know.
Scary.
Right. And also the smell of the sulfur was also prominent in the area. And even now and again, if you're up there, depending on where you're standing, you may get a whiff of it. But it's not dangerous. It only becomes dangerous if the shed that we built has no ventilation. If there's no ventilation and you go inside there and you can't smell it, you're probably done dead. But that is why we built it like that, so the wind can blow it, can dissipate it up there.
Speaking about that, the scent and everything, the persons who live in close proximity to where you're going to be drilling.
Yes.
What's the effect on those persons, especially with you saying it's going to be 24 hours, a 12-hour shift, constant work, constant noise? How would you be dealing with those?
Well, we were in Dominica. I think last year, or the year before, and we were on the site. And if I tell you I didn't hear nothing, you wouldn't believe. They were drilling, and we heard nothing. We were on site, we heard nothing. We actually went up to where the guy was doing the drilling, and he's inside there, he's chatting away and so forth, and we could hear each other.
Really?
Yeah. So there will be some noise levels. And what we have done, we brought in the ERM at the time, and we won't be monitoring the noise. It'll be monitored by them. In other words, because obviously we may tell people in the area that the noise level's at, say, 40 decibels, and they're saying it's louder than that. So we're going to allow persons on the outside to come in, check the noise levels, and ensure that whatever standard it is maintained both day and night. And so there will be meetings again just to ensure that because obviously there will be persons who will want to vent because of noise level, whatever it is. And so we're listening to everybody. We're not going to discard anybody, disregard anybody. Our intention is to do the project and do it in a safe way, right? So there's best practices, and we have to maintain that.
Sure. Right? That's where the awareness program comes in, because people must be told that, listen, you're going to, this is going to happen, that is going to happen, expect this, so that you kind of stem the company.
Some of the expats have already indicated that they will be going back
around that time.
So they will. So if it's a 6 month campaign, they'll go for 6 months, and then after it's finished, they'll be in touch with us. When we say, well, it's done now, they'll come back to their homes.
So, let me ask you this: you mentioned going underground, because you have to run the lines going up to the power plant. It's
just an option for us. We could go overhead, but we're choosing to go underground.
Yeah, but the question I wanted to ask is, which route you'll be taking? You'll be coming down, going down that up that way, or you'll be going from Hamilton, going across the church ground, down?
Going up through to Hamilton, coming across to
church ground.
To church ground.
Okay.
Come down to.
We can end up by Ted Hobson.
Down by Ted Hobson?
Yeah, come to by Ted Hobson.
And then we're going to end up going across there by, coming out there by Carl Claxton, and then going straight across to Prospect. You with me?
Oh, Ted, no, you lost me just
Ted
now.
is here in Marion Heights.
Ted lives in Marion Heights. You know where Ted live?
I thought Ted was over bad.
No,
No, man.
Oh boy, that's why I was confused just now.
No. So,
I didn't know he was in
but
Marion.
that might change because we are also looking at a route as the crow flies. So, in the proximity of where the old sugar mill is, we're looking at going straight through there. I think there are some landowners that we'll have to speak with. But the intention is to just go straight and then end up. Well, you don't know where Ted lives, but you'll end
I
up
thought
right
I knew where he lived all the
Yeah,
time.
you end up right in the junction.
Yes.
Rudy, you know where Rudy lives?
Yes.
Okay, just below Rudy.
Okay.
So we'll end up this there, and then you go straight across, and you pass Ted Hobson, and you head down that back road.
Yes.
And then you end up coming up through by Carl Claxton and then going straight over to Prospect.
What kind of time frame are we looking at to do that?
Well, again,
work on the actual-
again, it's money.
Yes, well, we understand the financing.
So what we'd ideally like to do is, like, while the drilling is going on, is to start to put in place the infrastructure for the transmission lines. And obviously, once we've dug, we would like to also put in the pipe work for the distribution lines. So, transmission lines. So what we're looking at down the road is to take out all the poles and put all the wires underground.
Sounds good.
So when the storms blow, they can blow as hard as they want.
I was just going to ask about that hurricane thing, because you notice the drilling is going to be done around that same hurricane season. You know?
Well, actually, it would be, well, what we're looking at would be early 2026, because if the project comes off, we're saying it'll be roughly 6 months mobilization, which will carry us into the first quarter of 2026. So we may just be before we get into the hurricane.
Okay. Now, one last thing before we run out of time. Some persons are saying that the geothermal now belongs to the federal government. Is there any truth in that?
Well, we're the executing agency, and I think we're based where?
In Nevis.
Okay, so we can say that the NIA is still fully involved.
Okay.
Obviously, whatever NEVLEC does, the NIA is aware of.
Yes.
They're informed, and so forth. So I don't think there's any point in the journey towards geothermal where the NIA is not involved. And obviously, as the executing agency, we are fully involved in every process along the way. So unless we move over to St. Kitts, I don't see that.
The resources here.
The resources here. You know.
One final question. Who decides who wins the bid? Is it CDB, or the final thing is the NIA or the...
Well, they'll form a committee.
Yes.
And there's criteria. So they'll put forward, and it's not. I think it's most times it's a CDB process.
Yes.
So then they'll set forth criteria. You know, if the key person has a doctorate and a master's and so forth. So you get points on that. How much years experience they have in the geothermal industry. If they have any present ongoing projects. So all of that would be a part of it, and obviously costs.
Yes. Big part is the cost. Yes.
So all that will be done. I'm not sure who will be a part of the selection committee, but they would be the persons to decide who gets the contract.
Okay.
And even after that, we will have to send our results to CDB, right? And then CDB will say, yes, what you've done is fine, we agree with your results and so forth, and then you can proceed to engage the services of that particular contractor.
Okay. And the hope is to have that decided by the 8th of May, hopefully.
Well, we're hoping for submissions.
Oh.
Once the submission is done, I think we have...
that's the closing date for
yes.
submission.
So I think we'll have another month or so
Right.
before we start to the selection process.
Okay.
So it may take another 2 months.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, guys, it's a pleasure as usual to have you guys on this program. I mean, a lot of information was disseminated. I deliberately asked the last question because I would have heard all kind of talk, so I deliberately asked that question. But I'm really happy to have you guys here, and I guess we have to do it one more time before you leave.
Well, we'll see.
Before you leave here.
We'll
Folks,
see.
your last comments for our listening and viewing audience, starting with you, Al.
Thank you once again, King, for having us here. I want to remind our general public our emergency number is 662-5811. Please call 662-5811 for any emergency calls. Don't call me, don't call Ian, don't call the Premier, don't call the Minister. Call 662-5811. We want to track these calls. We want to track our matrix. Also, we are still NEVLEC. We rather collect than disconnect. We have partnered with a number of banks, FCIB, National Bank, Republic Bank. We also partner with JAD. You can also walk into our offices and pay. You can also sign up for our ePay, and you could drop off a check in the check box. If you have any difficulties whatsoever in paying a bill, we ask you to walk in and see our customer service agents. Speak to our supervisors, our managers. Always prioritize in paying your electricity bill first. It powers your lights, it powers your phone.
Your TV.
Your TV. So prioritize us first. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby.
Yeah, I want to thank you again, the King, for inviting us here. I know the topic was, heavily geothermal, but I hope my 2 cents.
The elephant in the room.
Yeah. I hope my 2 cents was beneficial, and we're looking forward again to, have another show again with you.
Okay, thanks again. We have to thank the cameraman. You don't mention the cameraman.
Well,
He's doing a good job.
You're working.
I thank the public as well. I know that these interviews generate a lot of interest. I would have mentioned matrix. One of the major metrics I'm seeing in my reports is internal problems. Customers will engage the services of electrician, and then something happens. They're going to call NEVLEC, and then when we go, we realize that the problem is internal. Whatever work was done, I would encourage all homeowners, if you're doing any additional work, come to NEVLEC and ask for an inspection. I know that in the past we have seen homeowners paying, and this is not a slant on electricians. I'm not attacking electricians, but they've paid the electrician and he now come back, but they've left an issue. Right now, that issue might affect them, but sometimes the issue affects other customers.
Sure.
So we have found in very, very recently a fault occurring in somebody else's house and affecting other people in the area. And so we're just asking customers to visit NEVLEC prior to paying off the electrician, or ask the electrician to fill out the inspection form and call NEVLEC for an inspection. So once we have done the inspection, we know that the service is safe.
Yes.
And then we don't have to get too many call-outs for internal problems. So we're encouraging homeowners to call on NEVLEC and call for an inspection. Thank you.
Okay, great. Folks, that is a good way to end this evening's discussion. We have come to the end of another Government at Work program. Join us again next week when we shall do it all over again. Do enjoy the rest of the evening's programming. Then have a pleasant night's rest. Good night.